is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Shada here, and today we're going to be diving back into 90 Day Fiancé The Other Way Season 6. I have a little bit of an update on the couples. If you guys want to check out my most recent upload with regards to this season, I'll link it in the corner here. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Our very first couple we're going to discuss is Shekinah and Sarper. So I think we actually left off with Shekinah and Sarper seemingly doing okay, but then it seemed to have escalated after they went out for a birthday dinner. They were having a good time until Shekinah decided to present Sarper with a gift, and that's when Sarper was like, yeah, I'm gonna give her this vanity that she doesn't like as a gift. And I think it was just because he wanted to give her a gift because he didn't really have anything else, but at the same time it was something that she said that, you know, you just should not spend the money on because I don't like it. That escalated into a very heated argument that ended up getting pretty physical, unfortunately. So it sounds as though the story remained pretty consistent by both Sarper and Shekinah. So I'm just going to share the details that they both kind of said. So we find out that their argument escalated when they got back to Sarper's place, and that's when he decided to grab her phone, and I guess in the process of grabbing her phone, he accidentally ripped out some of her hair extensions. That's when Shekinah tried to get the phone back from Sarper, and Sarper pretends that he doesn't know what she's talking about, and she just decides, you know, I'm gonna pack up and leave and go to a hotel. It seemed as though at this point that Shekinah was finally putting her foot down to Sarper's foolishness. While she's packing up to leave, Sarper, instead of just saying he's sorry, says, you know, go ahead and, you know, have a fun life with your parties and your friends back in LA. And he just keeps putting on this front as though he doesn't really care about their relationship, but he knows good and darn well that he does. She leaves and she stays in a hotel for a bit with her dog, and now it seems as though Sarper has reached this point where he's just like, yeah, I kind of want her back now. They decide to finally meet. Shekinah gives him a chance to explain himself, say what he's going to do moving forward to be different, and it seems as though Shekinah might be serious about leaving the relationship if he doesn't actually follow through on what he says he's going to do, especially with regards to going to therapy, sticking with it, and all that stuff. Now, he does offer to smash the bottles of alcohol that he collected from his previous relationships or mingling with other women that he just proudly displayed in a case in his apartment, and Shekinah absolutely hated it, but he still refused to let it go. So now they're smashing these bottles, and Shekinah, I don't know if this is bad luck or what, but Shekinah couldn't even smash the bottle. I think she had to try at least 2 or 3 times before she actually smashed it. She was like, listen, Sarper, this is nice and all, but we need to go to therapy. So they do end up going to therapy, but I think it's like couples therapy, at least in this first session. It's for both of them to kind of tell the therapist what's going on in their relationship. But at the same time, I don't know if this is really going to help them all that much, because it doesn't really feel as though Sarper is going to change. I think he's just doing things for the time being to make Shekinah happy. I just don't really think that he's capable of being this person that Shekinah really wants. I'm just going to be honest. Statler and Dempsey. Now, this was going downhill from the moment that Statler landed in the UK to meet up with Dempsey and for them to go and finally get their van to now start on their whole van life together across Europe. And she just had an interesting attitude. Dempsey, you know, to kind of lighten the mood, she decides to plan a day for them to go out and go to a bee farm. She takes her there, they go on a little date, and you could see that Statler is in her zone. Okay, Statler loves insects, and Dempsey knows that. She knows that bees are one of her favorite insects. Everything was going well, but then I think this is maybe like a few days later, they were going to be taking a boat ride from the UK, I think, to France. Correct me on that if I'm wrong, but either way, they were going on a boat. And I guess that Statler thought that this trip was going to only be like 10 minutes or so, but it ends up being a lot longer than that, and she was not prepared mentally for that. So her anxiety, at least from her words, she said that her anxiety was definitely kicking up in that moment, and also her memories of like a past issue that she had of throwing up on a boat. And she's having issues definitely communicating that with Dempsey because it comes across as very rude, even though I understand that when you're having having or experiencing somewhat of an anxiety attack, you can't really in that moment verbalize that well your feelings. I totally get it. But I think there was definitely a better way for her to communicate said feelings. But at the same time, I do think that Dempsey was already pretty frustrated with Statler leading up to this moment, and that just kind of exacerbated things. And I think that because of that, Dempsey reacted the way that she did and kept talking to Statler and trying to get her to explain herself, and she also kept pushing her. But it wasn't the best time, obviously, but it seemed as though at one point that Dempsey was even considering breaking up with Statler. Like, that's what it was sounding like at one point in their conversation. And I just feel, honestly, even though I understand Statler, that her attitude is also a problem. I think she needs to definitely work on the attitude issue. I understand that she does have autism. I understand that she has issues with anxiety. I get that. But at the same time, when you're going to be in a relationship with someone, you do have to take into consideration their feelings as well. One time when they were in the van, Dempsey was saying to Statler that she had a little bit of extra money from selling her car. And I guess she didn't really tell Statler that beforehand, but she kind of insinuated that Dempsey was keeping information away from her. But at the same time, it's just kind of like, girl, you also have said in the past many times that you have issues in terms of like memory and you don't remember a lot of things that were said in conversations. So I kind of believe that this is probably one of those moments as well, because Dempsey also said that she told her that many times that she had a little bit of extra money on the side from selling her car. But either way, Dempsey starts crying because she feels as though Statler is insinuating that she's kind of like a liar. Statler in that moment was actually a little bit more, I guess, sympathetic towards her, and she was trying to definitely calm her down. But I think overall, Statler, even though she has her problems, I think that she needs to take into consideration that she is still in a relationship with someone regardless, and you need to take into consideration their feelings too. Josh and Lily. Things seem to be kind of interesting with Josh and Lily, I'm not gonna lie. It seems as though they're having some communication issues. Josh is kind of chalking it up to them not being able to speak each other's languages fluently because they still have to use kind of like a translator app. So I think that it is very frustrating, obviously, when you are in that type of situation, but at the same time, it's like, how long have you guys been together? You didn't try to learn some words here and there either. It just seems as though Lily had put more into learning English than Josh had put into trying to learn Chinese or Mandarin. I think it's Mandarin, right? Y'all let me know. So that seems to be an issue. And then also, it seems as though from Josh's blow-ups, whenever it comes to little things, like I think he said there was a light that keeps flashing, and Lily was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, and just kind of brushed it off. But I guess it was a little bit more serious to Josh. Lily is taking it as, you know, you don't like me. If you don't like being around me or like me, why are we married? And also Lily kind of presents the whole issue with regards to him not really wanting to initiate having sex. Clearly intimacy is a very big thing when it comes to marriage. Now, how big of a thing it is, it depends on the people involved in the marriage, but I would have to say that it clearly is something that's weighing on Lily's mind if she brings it up to him. So hopefully Josh takes that information to heart and does try his best to really make her feel loved, because I think it was more so the making her feel loved part. I don't think it's too much of just the sex. I think it's just the intimacy and feeling loved. I think that's what she's missing. Corona and Ingi. So Corona has finally met Ingi's parents. They seem like really nice people. They spoke to her as though she was just another part of the family already. His parents were asking like, hey, when are you thinking about tying the knot? Also, when are you guys thinking about having kids? Do you actually want kids? Now, obviously, as the parents to one of the people involved in said relationship, those are some very natural questions that come up. That's something usually parents or family members ask. When it came to how Ingi reacted, I guess he felt a little uncomfortable with talking about that so soon. Wouldn't y'all have had that conversation already, kind of, sort of? It seemed as though Corona is a little bit more sold on the whole marriage thing than Ingi is, and that's a little worrisome. Corona tries to get him mentally prepared for meeting her family, and I think Ingi, being the easygoing person that he is, was already thinking that this was just going to be a walk in the park. But at the same time, I think Corona knows her family way better than he does, and she knows how they can be. They could be a little rowdy, they could be a little loud, you know, very expressive people. And that definitely was the case when they talked via Zoom. Her mom was definitely a little bit more like, you know. In the end, it seems as though he'd kind of won them over, at least more so the grandma who said that she straight out didn't like him before even knowing him like that. But we'll see. It already gives off, at least Ingi, he gives off this vibe that he's not as interested as Corona is when it comes to this relationship. He seems very like, yeah, whatever happens, happens. You know, I don't really have a plan. But Corona's like, I just gave up my whole life in the States to come live with you. I'm gonna need you to have a timeline, buddy. James and Meitalia. So I'm just gonna be using Meitalia's nickname. It's Tata, because that seems to be what James and all the rest of her family members call her. James, I think I said in the previous video, he'd finally made his way over to Indonesia. They're now living in Tata's family home, and I guess they had made some alterations to the room. They now have a mattress in the room on the floor. So now it seems as though the focus is more so on James with regards to him not really keeping up his promise in terms of having children. That has been the main point of tension within these last couple of episodes, because for a good minute Tata decided to not tell James that I guess their mutual friend Adele had said to her before she left for Indonesia that James didn't really want kids anymore. In the beginning he did, but after I guess COVID and seeing everything that was happening, he says he doesn't want kids anymore. But he didn't tell Tata that. But now Tata knows that, and he doesn't know that she knows. But finally Tata takes James to the beach. They seem to be having a nice little walk until she brings up that Adele told her that he doesn't really want kids. And you could see that James is caught off guard, because James just like, why would she tell you that? I feel weird about her telling you and me not being the one to tell you. At the same time, it's just kind of like, you had ample time to discuss this with your wife. They finally have that conversation, and it even gets more tense when James is just like, listen, I really can't give you an answer. It gets even worse. It's just like, I can't really give you an answer if I want kids. We'll just have to settle down here in Indonesia, see what we can do in terms of getting money, and then we can talk about the whole kids conversation. I just have a feeling that that's gonna be a wasted time. Honestly, for Tata, I think it's gonna be wasted time. Even though James seems like a cool guy and Tata also believes that he would be a good father, James has to ultimately want to be a dad. You could see that James at one point during the preview of another episode that he's getting emotional about Tata possibly leaving the marriage and their relationship if he decides that he doesn't want children. And I wouldn't blame her, because that's something that she wants, and you could see that's something that is very important to her and her family. So I would not blame her for getting a divorce on those grounds, because I think James's reasoning behind not wanting kids is kind of ridiculous. He says, oh, you know, there's just so much going on in the world, there's so much wars and people deleting each other and all that stuff. And I'm just like, there will always be problems in the world, sir. I just think that you basing something so important as you having or not having kids on something that you can't control and something that's gonna always happen, there's always gonna be conflict. What are we doing here? It just seems like a excuse to me, and he just doesn't want kids anymore and doesn't know how to tell her, but he's using that as an excuse. But let's move on. Joanne and Sean, they're going to be our last couple. Joanne finally goes to Ireland with her kids, her sons, and also one of her best friends to visit Sean and also his daughter. They end up going to an Airbnb and everything seems to be going okay, but they are staying in separate rooms for right now because they still haven't told that they are married already. They're thinking that they're just coming over to see each other, but they don't know that they're married yet. But either way, everything seems to be going okay. Sean's making breakfast, the kids are getting along, they're playing video games. Sean actually ends up taking the kids to go out and play outside. That's when Joanne's oldest son comes up to Sean and has a conversation about, my mom wants me to have an opinion on you, and this is kind of the first time that I met you, and blah blah blah. And they're having an okay conversation. A couple of days after that is when they actually sit all of their kids down, and also Joanne's best friend, and they finally tell them that they're married. I think they took this opportunity after seeing all of the kids getting along and having a good time to basically say, we're married and we want you guys to know that we're going to be a family. And Sean's daughter seems to take it the most interestingly, because she might have wanted to be a part of the wedding. Like, she doesn't really know how to express herself in words, you know, in terms of how she's feeling in that moment. The youngest son, Joanne's youngest son, seems to just keep eating. He's just kind of like shocked, but not really. He's just like, oh, okay. But the oldest son and also Joanne's best friend, they're both looking at Sean and Joanne like, why did y'all not tell us this? And for 2 years, y'all been married for 2 years and did not say anything. Really? So you could see that there's a lot of shock, a lot of emotions going around, and I just don't know what's going to happen moving forward. Happy that they finally told him, they got it off their chest, but at the same time it's like, eesh. Yikes. The fact that you couldn't share that with your family, girl, really? But anyway, but y'all let me know your thoughts on this one down in the comments. I'll keep you updated on future episodes in another video. But I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.